Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Almassian. At the UN, guys, UN, there are two bodies, right? One of which is the UN Security Council, which consists of 5 permanent members and also 10 other members that are rotating. And also, we have the UN General Assembly, which consists of all the countries around the world. So, if you want to measure the international community, I would say that the General Assembly can give an indication of the country's policies and where are they standing on different cases. And just 2 days ago, General Assembly, they have adopted 99 resolutions, one of which is about the Middle East and Palestine. And this was the case that they have addressed. Addressing the Middle East, the Assembly took up the report, Permanent Sovereignty of the Palestinian People in the Occupied Palestinian Territory, including East Jerusalem and of the Arab population in the occupied Syrian Golan over their natural resources, the document number A78467, adopting the eponymous resolution by a recorded vote of 158 in favor to 6 against. What countries were against this resolution? Canada, Federated States of Micronesia, Israel, Nauru, Palau, and the United States, with 13 abstentions. By its terms, the Assembly demanded that Israel, the occupying power, cease the exploitation, damage, cause of loss, or depletion and end angerment of the natural resources in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem and in the occupied Syrian Golan. Further to the draft, it recognized the right of the Palestinian people to claim restitution as a result of any exploitation, damage, loss, or depletion, or endangerment of their natural resources resulting from illegal measures taken by Israel, the occupying power. Also, the text, it called upon Israel to halt all actions, including those perpetrated by Israeli settlers harming the environment, including the dumping of all kinds of waste materials in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem and in the occupied Syrian Golan, and seize its destruction of vital infrastructure. So the countries who voted against are, as I told you, Micronesia, Palau, Nauru, Canada, and of course the United States and Israel. Australia, those are the countries who abstained: Australia, Cote d'Ivoire, Cameroon, Guatemala, Kiribati, I never heard of that, Papua, Paraguay, Togo, Tonga, Tuvalu, and Vanuatu. Those are some new countries that I never heard of before, but however, they were voting against this resolution at the UN UN General Assembly. But in all, this shows the where the international community stands, and those are the majority of the countries. And one of the countries that is standing on the right side of history, in my opinion, especially in the past 2 decades, when I woke up on politics and I can see where this country is standing in regards to Libya, in regards to Syria, in regards to Iraq, in regards of different countries now in Palestine and the Gaza Strip, is China. And today I'm joined by Carl Cha. Carl is the host of Silk and Road podcast on China history, culture, and politics. And I wanted to extend this invitation to Carl because it seems there is a new article nowadays by Bloomberg, and they are trying to say that China is doing really well, but this is all about luck and not about planning and not about calculations. And it seems that the jackpots are hitting for Xi Jinping nowadays. Carl, thank you very much for being my guest. I think your microphone is still on the mute. Yeah.
I put my mic on mute because my dog was barking like mad in the background, so I had to wait for him to do his thing. And but because I'm on the third story, and my dog is here with me. So whenever he sees movement down there, he just go crazy. You know, he thinks he's the United States. You know, he thinks he owns the whole neighborhood.
He's territorial. He's trying to protect for your own good, my friend.
Yes.
I was reading this article today. You shared it first on X, and this caught my attention. And I had to go to the archives to read it because I'm not going to pay to Bloomberg any penny to read this article to begin with. So the author Minxin Pei, I think he's a Chinese economist and a professor in the United States States. He's a liberal Chinese living in the United States for quite some time, as I understood from you. I just want to go through the main parts of this article, and here is an important part I think we have to focus on, which says like China is doing much better than expected abroad. So on the foreign policy level, Russia has stymied Ukrainian forces, lessening pressure on Xi to provide Putin more support in defiance of Western sanctions. Incipient signs of Ukraine fatigue, particularly among Republicans in the US, have brightened Russia's prospects and made Xi's risky partnership with Putin look increasingly like a smart bet. The brutal Hamas terror attack on October 7 and subsequent Israel-Hamas war have delivered another yet year-end geopolitical gift. So those are all coming as gifts to China and Xi Jinping. In the eyes of much of the world, the humanitarian toll on Gaza's civilian population has gravely diminished the moral authority of the US, which has staunchly backed Israel. Like previous wars in the Middle East, this conflict could fester as an endless headache for the US, diverting precious strategic resources from its rivalry with China. When I read this article, I really would like to understand, has China calculated these steps? Because according to the author, it seems like those came as a gift to China and Xi Jinping. Or do you think it's a combination of miscalculations first by China's rivals and correct calculations, if I'm correct to say, by Beijing itself? Because it seems to me that there is an underestimation of Chinese foreign policy here.
Well, if we're going by the esteemed professor from McKenna Claremont College here, it's an act of God. It's an act of God the China's rise. But China actually has what's called the non-interference foreign policy, which is paying off. I mean, basically, China's basic position is to be friends to all and enemy to none. But United States don't believe that. United States only believes zero sum, right? Like if it's good for me, it can't be good for you. We don't believe in win-win. So this is what they're talking about the U.S. rivalry with China. That's mostly a U.S. concern. China would very much like to have good relationship with U.S. so they can keep on selling goods to the United States. It's U.S. right now that want to de-risk, want to contain China. But then again, and it's a lot of these is very, very self-contradictory because, for example, they said that Xi Jinping's risky bet to have strategic partnership with Russia. Look, United States is hell-bent on containing both China and Russia. It just makes perfect strategic sense for Russia and China to work together, both on the international stage and with each other. This is like a no-brainer. But these same people who are now complaining that China is getting a lucky break have been getting on China's case for not jumping on the Western bandwagon to sanction Russia for Ukraine. Like, why? Why would China do that? Do they think Chinese leadership are stupid? They made it clear that they're going to go after Russia, they're going to go after China, they're going to go after Iran. So what? The China is supposed to help the West destroy Russia, so China can be the next target?
They call it containment. They don't call it "we're coming after you." We're going to contain Russia, and we're going to contain China, and we're going to contain Iran, or pivot to the
yeah. It's like, why would China help you to destroy one of its friend and ally? I mean, that just does not make sense. And they're doing it again. They're complaining the Chinese Navy in the Red Sea is not helping Israeli shipping companies. But again, it's why would China help? Like there's Israel's great buddy, United States, that's moving a whole entire aircraft carrier battle group to the Red Sea. Let them do all the heavy lifting. Why would China step in a conflict that it's wholly uninvolved with? This is whole purpose. This is the whole purpose behind China's non-interference policy. It's like, this is your problem. You deal with it. We would love to do business with you. If you come talk about trade, we're all, we'll do business with anybody. The business of China at the end of the day is business. The business of United States is war. And that is a major difference. And that is, I would say that is smart planning. That's smart planning, not to get involved, not get entangled in wars far from your shore, and then just pursue mutually beneficial trade relationship. And that's what China had been doing. And this is why China refused to sanction Russia, because Russia is actually have proved to be a very reliable trade partner. And now China and Russia trade is blooming to over 200 billion. That Russia is now China's number 5 trade partner, and so it's still growing. And then again, China at one point had good relationship with both Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Israel, right? Because China's non-interference policy, like your differences, you settle among yourself. We're just here to do business. But United States, of course, by the way, some of those small countries that you couldn't you just learn about, they're like tiny island nation in the Pacific. That's why you never heard about them. They're most of them are still in the pockets of United States, like Palau. Palau was used to be like what they call the trusted territory that U.S. administered. They only gained their independence like 20 or 30 years ago. So all these island nations still very much depend on the United States, and so they can't really say no when Uncle Sam make them a deal they can't refuse. Go ahead.
But at the end of the day, the United States was able to impose its will on some islands because, as you can see, around 155 countries voted for these resolutions that go against, let's say, the American hegemony and the Israeli hegemony in the region. And it seems that most of the countries' interests lie somewhere else, and it's not with the United States when it comes to this particular case.
I mean, nobody supports genocide. I mean, this is clear-cut case of ethnic cleansing, genocide. I mean, bombing children. Most people in the world are against bombing children, and United States couldn't even bring itself to abstain from this vote. Now, we all know like UN resolutions are basically toothless piece of paper, and like Israel is never going to respect it, and yet even such a toothless UN resolution, United States couldn't bring itself just abstaining. It doesn't even have to vote no, but yet it has to do that. And they had done a global survey of the favorability view about US worldwide. It used to be 40% before the Gaza conflict, and now it's stood at 10%. And then you have Tony Blinken, who just yesterday, 18 hours ago, State Department tweeted a tweet of him giving a talk. He said, the world is looking to U.S. for leadership. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, have you looked at the data? Have you looked at, I mean, this is like United States.
Let me show the audience this video that you're speaking about. I think it would be fun for the people to see what is it, because he is completely, in my opinion, detached from the reality in this case. And he says that the world is looking for the leadership of the United States. Take a look, guys.
When President Biden took office, he promised to deliver for the American people by reinvesting in America's greatest sources of strength. And since day one, that's exactly what we've done. We've done it here at home by making historic investments in our competitiveness, in our military, in our infrastructure, in our technology, in our manufacturing base. We've also done it around the world, revitalizing and re-energizing our unmatched network of alliances and partnerships. In 2023, we continue to show that this strategy is working. In a year of profound tests, the world looked to the United States to lead, and that's just what we did. It was also a year when our friends and partners took significant, at times even unprecedented steps to share with us the responsibility of leadership. As we head into 2024, we will continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with those who share our vision for a free, open, prosperous, and secure world, because that's what delivering for the American people demands.
Look, if I was Antony Blinken, and of course somebody has written this text, right? And I would look into this text and I would say, bro, like, how can I read this with a straight face, right?
I mean, he's actually the perfect the guy to deliver it, because he's like the most uncharismatic, most wooden. diplomat U.S. has produced, but otherwise it's like beyond parody. It's like saying that world is looking to U.S. to lead is like a guy picking up a rock and then repeatedly hitting himself in the face and like, look, this rock loved me. This rock really loved me. And then he's bleeding all over and he's saying, like, look, the rock is giving me hickeys. And this is these guys are completely delusional and these guys are okay. So their job, State Department, is to present the best face forward for United States. But at this point, it looks like they don't care anymore. And like some obvious lies, like U.S. is the world is looking to U.S. for leadership, and what this is what American people want and support. Guess what? 70% of the American survey said they want immediate ceasefire in Gaza.
Yes.
It's a U.S. official like Tony Blinken and Biden is completely ignoring the popular demand and keep on sticking with their plan to stand by Israel just because of peculiarity of American politics that any politician can't afford to be seen as like anti-Israel in any way. Even RFK, who at one point represent like an alternative to the establishment figure, now is coming out to like a rah-rah Israel. I mean, all these politicians are the same, and yet they claim that we stand for democracy and freedom. The democracy and freedom means come 2024, as American voter, you have the choice to vote either Biden or Trump. That's your freedom. Yeah. That's your freedom of choice. So this is all bullshit. And this is why I think this is a reason there's a lot of copium now produced by China about China in U.S. about China, because it's really not about China anymore. It's about people just need to feel good about United States. So what makes this imaginary country called China that everything is horrible over there? So you for you who consuming the American news at home, you'll feel like it's not all bad. At least we're not as bad as China, right? And so that's why there's a cognitive dissonance when they realize, oh crap, China in reality actually doing okay. They're nowhere near doing as bad as our news media is presented. That's why you got that ridiculous article from Minxin Pei saying, oh, Xi Jinping just got lucky this year. Well, guess what? China has been getting lucky for the last 40 years. And I have a feeling that they'll continue to get lucky. And again, this is because China doesn't get in play that stupid empire game the United States is doing, interfering in world affairs halfway around the globe, and because you know what, the China do not have the equivalent of the Lockheed Martin, the Halliburtons telling Xi Jinping what to do so they can make more profit this year, because that in China that doesn't make sense, because most of the Chinese military industrial complex is owned by the state, right? So that kind of removes the profit incentive, and they have to answer to the state. They don't get to manipulate the state to do what they want. And again, like, notwithstanding Xi Jinping's talking about rising West, East, and declining West, I mean, this is not a Xi Jinping talking point anymore. This is just it's observable facts.
But you know, Carl, one of the things that is being argued about, for example, from, let's say, in the countries outside of China, let's say in the United States or in Europe, is the limitation of China's power. This is what they say. For example, in this paragraph here, he says, but the two most consequential geopolitical developments in 2023, the stalemate in Ukraine and the outbreak of the conflict in the Middle East, underscore the limits of Chinese power, despite the widespread perception perception of China as a global superpower, it has had no direct influence on either event. Notwithstanding Xi's talk of a rising East and declining West, the US remains the only true superpower capable of shaping such conflicts and determining their outcomes. Like, the question here is, because you're talking about and saying that it's about non-interventionism. Is it really just non-interventionism? That's why China is not playing a major role in this conflict, or it's a combination, let's say, of a non-interventionism and the limitation of power as well in certain areas of the world, such as in the Middle East?
Well, see, China understand their own limitations. They understand the limit on their own power. China is not looking to project their power the way the United States is. When the Western commentariats, they're talking about China, it's almost 100% projection. They assume what the Chinese want is what the U.S. empire administrators want also. They just assume everybody wants to dominate the world the way U.S. is dominating the world. Maybe the possibility, maybe the Chinese are not interested in dominating the world. That's not even a possibility to these people, because China is not looking to shape the world into a kind of according to the universal value or rule-based international order. That's not what China is about. China has always said it's respect sovereignty, right? You respect and you respect people's national independence, but China has been principled also in the Middle East when it comes to Palestine. China has always said it supports Palestinian statehood, and Xi Jinping said that during the Arab League meeting back few years ago when he was speaking in Cairo. And he said he said nothing new. At that time, there were some American commentary said, "Oh, why would China say that? That's so dumb." But that's the China's position from from even the Mao's day, Mao era. China has always been supporting Palestinian independence, and what China said is correct. If you really want peace, you need to have a Palestinian state, and the only lasting peace. If you want Israel to exist, you must recognize the Palestinians' right to exist, a Palestinian statehood, but the problem is, we all know Israeli politicians like Netanyahu, they don't want the two-state solution. They made the two-state solution almost impossible now because they wanted greater Israel. They want to wipe out any vestigial Palestinian statehood, self-determination, and they don't want to give equal rights to the Palestinians living between River Jordan and Mediterranean Sea. They just want a Jewish supremacist state with the Jews at the top and the Palestinian at the bottom, who are not even citizens because they don't have citizenship rights. They're just a permanent underclass who have to face daily humiliation of going through checkpoints and having faced their holy places being ransacked all the time. I mean, people in the West, they think October 7th happened in a vacuum. Like the history just started. But as you know, because you're from the region, as many people, observant people know, this history started way before 1948. And this is just a accumulation of more than 70 years of occupation. But again, China is perfectly fine to have a trade relationship with Israel, just like it wants to have trade relationship with any nation. But why should China be going to the Red Sea, sending its warship to the Red Sea to help Israeli shipping because a mess that Israel made themselves? I mean, this is you wipe your own ass. I mean, this is just common sense. Every time they say that, oh, China is not doing its global obligations, what they're really saying is China is not holding up the rule-based international order that's headed by United States. That's what they're really saying. That's why they complain that China is not joining the Western sanction against Russia. Now they're complaining the Chinese Navy just sitting by while Houthis cutting off the shipping lane through Red Sea. And the Chinese shipping giant COSCO recently announced they're suspending the Red Sea trade route. and their stock price went crazy. Their stock price went up. I mean, the choice is clear. It's like why continue to do something that doesn't work? But this is something that the Western supremacist mind don't understand, because the only language understands the language of hegemony and language of force. So they expect everybody have the same mentality as they do. But for China, their first and primary focus is domestic issues, like within China itself. The Chinese government, their primary focus is still within China to provide prosperity for the Chinese people, which anything else is a distraction. Going to war in Middle East is a distraction. That does not add to the prosperity of the Chinese people. Not to mention it's immoral to support the genocide in Israel. And go ahead.
The Western supremacists that you mentioned. I watched yesterday an interview with Alexander Dugin, the Russian philosopher. Although I disagree with him on several things, but in this case he was correct when he said he was asked about the definition of unipolarity and multipolarity, and he didn't start from international system, politics, geopolitics. He started from the culture. He started from the civilization, and he said, basically, I'm paraphrasing him, that under unipolar world, it's not that everybody has to follow the American supremacy, but also everybody has act according to the values and according to the thinking and according to the mentality and according to the universal values that the United States is trying to promote around the world. People in the United States have to be similar in their thinking with the people in Europe, and the people in Europe have to be similar in their thinking with the people in Russia and eventually in China and the rest of the world. That's how this war of narratives is moving. It's not only about what is right and what is wrong and how we should govern ourselves, etc., but what we should believe in, what should be our family relationships, how we should look into the family nuclear, for example, etc., etc. And if you disagree with that, you could also come under immense pressure. And one of these examples we can see in Hungary. Like in Hungary, there is a right-wing government, and the government there rejects the universal values of the American side or the EU side that are trying to destroy the family nuclear, for example, in Western societies. And you can see that they are even trying to pressure their own ally in this regard. So imagine what would happen to the people in different parts of the world. For example, in Qatar, if you remember, during World War II, everybody was like, they left everything aside of Qatar's financing of terrorism in the region and supporting ISIS, Al-Qaeda in Syria. No, they haven't spoken about that at all. They spoke about how the non-existent LGBTQ community in Qatar is suppressed. It's like if you go to Qatar, 160,000 people, and they care about the 1 or 2% of probably the LGBTQ plus community, so 1,600 people in Qatar, and the German national team was doing this gesture in front of the world, whereas now we can see humans are being slaughtered day and night, like the babies, as this footage coming from the Gaza Strip. It breaks your heart, and it makes you, it fills your heart with anger. And when your heart is filled with anger, you may also do something stupid. So lots of people who cannot really show self-restraint in their emotional status or emotional state, they could go on social media and start saying stupid things because they have seen things that are beyond imaginable. And then the Israeli side comes and says, oh, look what's happening there. They hate us for who we are. No, they don't hate you for who you are or what you're born as. They are showing hatred after they've seen all this footage coming from Palestine. It's unbearable.
This is like the rhetoric coming from United States during the Bush era, right? That they always say, oh, they hate us because our freedom. It's like, no, nobody hates you for your freedom. People hate you because you're stupid foreign policy, and because you are screwing around in their neighborhood. And the thing is that's too, you can't. They don't want to get into that. That's why now the Zoomer generation is discovering Osama's letter to America. Now, because Guardian stupidly decided they're going to remove it from their website after 10 years. And now all the Zoomers like, oh my God, what he said about United States really opening my eyes. Well, yeah, duh. I mean, but those even rhetoric is not imaginable 10 years ago in U.S. But now we're at a different time. But people like Biden, like Tony Blinken, they're still stuck. Their mind is still stuck in 1980s and 1990s. You know, back in the time when Biden is still coherent, can complete sentences. And you know, if you see what Biden says back in the days in the 80s and 90s, he was saying stuff like, "Oh, Israel is like the best $3 billion investment United States ever make. If it wasn't for Israel, we'll have to create an Israel for the United States interests in the Middle East." This is when Biden was still coherent. And he but their core ideology hasn't changed, because 1980s and 1990s, for those people, that's their peak years. And that was a peak of the American empire, right? That was a time of the end of history, right? The U.S. represent the end of history, the end of human development. But talking about exporting value around the world, the funny thing is, in United States, U.S. is deeply divided. The U.S. population is deeply divided on whether these neoliberal values should be universal. Yeah, they're exporting it to the rest of the world. So it's China does not represent the model. China's model is, everybody should mind their own business. Like people should focus on their own affairs, but you should respect other nations' sovereignty and not meddle in their internal affairs. I mean, that's a principled stand. That's something that most people can go. But see, this is why a lot of the American commentary, they say, oh, the fact that China is not interfering actually shows the limitation of the Chinese power. They don't consider it for a fact that even China and Chinese people are not interested to get into affairs of Middle East or Europe or Latin America. But those I would post even those neoliberals in the Western capitals. They're actually maybe more scared of development, like in Hungary, because what they see. Oh, these white people, they're pursuing a different path. That could be us, right? Because China is too different. Civilizationally, China is too far removed. China might as well exist on the moon. But Hungary, that's something they understand. They're like, oh, crap, what happened? Because you can't deny a place like Hungary is not a democracy. They have election, right? It's just that they're not liberal. They're not liberal the way that the Western capitals like. So they're like, oh crap, we have to put a stop to that, because we don't want our own white people to get ideas.
But they found a way out for that, Carl. And in every article they speak about Hungary now. It's also there is the attribution, which is where they say Hungary, which famously kept its relationship with Putin's Russia and the invasion in Ukraine. So they always will find some way to.
They always find. They always perform mental gymnastics. Right? That now, I mean, they're implying that Russians are now white. I mean, like, yes, your eyes are lying to you. These most blonde, blue-eyed people are not white. Yeah, there's somehow some kind of Asiatic remnant of Genghis Khan. I mean, these guys are crazy. These guys are just totally nuts. Like they can just cast aside out the Russian people from the white race, right? Just because the Russians don't follow the same political development that they espouse. It's completely, it's madness. It's complete madness. And we it's hard to parody anymore, because these people they're walking parody themselves. Yeah, it's beyond parody.
Man. Carl, my friend, I really appreciate dedicating this time for me and commenting on this important case. I really appreciate your valuable insight, and I'm sure the audience of Syriana Analysis do as well. And guys, the X or Twitter account of Carl is in the description below, and also his own podcast that he's posting regularly also on YouTube. You're only on YouTube at the current moment, right?
I'm on YouTube and I have my Patreon site. So
Patreon
people
site.
can
I will put
Yeah.
all the links, guys, from X to Patreon and also his podcast on YouTube in the description below. Please hit him a follow and see what he says. There are different opinions from my side, his side. Just have a comprehensive opinion of geopolitics and make up your mind at the end of the day. Carl, thank you so much again for being my guest, brother.
Thank you, Kevorka. Anytime. My pleasure.